You're listening to Thrill Talk, where we discuss business, life, and everything else we like. Produced in Tucson, Arizona, and brought to you by Team Integrity Homes and the Military PCS Referral Network. Here's Aaron and Chase.
All right, Mr. Wilson, we are back at it again.
One more.
We're here. We are standing. It has been 0 days since any of us have gotten the corona.
That's right.
We are doing well.
People are getting sick, though.
Getting very sick. All right, we had a great podcast last week with Mr. Chad. Chad is everything from parole officer. No, I'm sorry, Navy veteran, parole officer, and then somehow ended up in Puerto Vallarta running a charter boat.
Yes.
Now he sells real estate in Tucson.
Amazing stuff.
So, likewise, we've got a guest with us,
Yes, we do.
Mr. Drew Smith.
Good morning.
All right. Drew Smith, also a veteran and in real estate now as well.
True.
True.
All facts.
True. Here's a fact for you, Aaron. Drew's nickname is the Druth.
Okay, we're going to have to get to the bottom of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
Or when in Mexico, El Druth.
El Druthe.
Yes, we got some. Yeah, I remember a good time with you in Mexico.
Yep. So I met Drew. You were still enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
You got out in March 2 years ago? 3 years ago.
April.
3 years ago?
Yep.
3 years ago. Was doing both for a little bit, getting his license and everything, and then jumped straight into real estate afterwards, and that's how we got to know each other. We have traveled as far as Beaumont, Texas, to go gut houses after the hurricane,
That was wild.
after Harvey. Drew and I got in an RV with a couple other buddies, packed it to the brim, literally, drove nonstop. At one point, I thought I was going to see Jesus because everybody was passed out in the back, and it was Drew and I, and it was probably 1:30 in the morning, and we're in a Class C RV, top heavy. And Drew, how packed was this thing?
I mean, we had water. I can't remember.
The entire Class C part, where like the sleeper is over the cab, was just packed with supplies, like
Everything.
cleaning supplies, like everything for gutting houses. And so this thing, like, you would sway, and it would like you would move, you would turn, and the whole thing would sway. And it's like 1:30, and we had been driving for I think 19 or 20 hours now, and I was like half dead. And Drew's got his headphones in, and it was creepy. It was like out of a horror movie. Like, this is Houston, right? Houston at 1:30, and this was like a week after the hurricane. There was no cars.
Nothing.
Like, the
Nothing.
entire freeway.
We're driving down like an 8-lane highway
Yes.
through mid-Houston, and we are the only vehicle on the road.
Like, there is no headlights coming. It's just us. It was like The Walking Dead.
yeah, it was freaking.
And I look over, and Drew's doing like 95-ish in the RV.
Going hard.
Yeah. And I wake up, and like he's changing lanes, and like I don't have the steering wheel to hold on to, so I'm swaying with the RV.
Yeah.
And we made it there. It was brutal.
It was crazy, yeah.
So
And
that's
then,
just one of many stories.
and then going back through El Paso, remember that?
Oh my
They were in
gosh.
like 4 lanes with no shoulders because it was construction, and I was doing like 85 again. And
So-
Chase is like freaking out.
So for the record, I know now not to get in a vehicle with Drew.
Dude, I'll tell you what, between me and Drew and the other two guys, we booked it back.
Yeah,
we
we
made
did.
good time coming back. It was a lot lighter.
yeah, it
We
was.
like it was so much lighter that when you accelerated, you felt the difference. And we didn't have to fill up every 150 miles coming back.
Yeah, major difference.
So Drew has done how many house builds you done with us? 5? 6?
5 or 6, I think.
Every 6 months for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
John and I were trying to count it. I think this will be our 6th.
6, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Drew has been a staple of our group that goes down to Mexico to build houses for families living in poverty. And as a matter of fact, we're leaving in 3 weeks to go do another one.
Counting down the days.
Yep. So Drew, tell us about this. Tell us about young Pennsylvanian Drew Smith.
Not a lot to tell, to be honest. Just grew up in PA, natural, I don't know, just being a kid and
hunting, fishing
every day. Like, I guess it sounds
Like
like
the
the song,
song?
but literally, I mean, that was it. Like, even, and I, shouldn't say this, but even when it was out of season, like, we would still walk around with our, shotguns and shoot stuff. So
That's Detroit.
yeah,
Also.
yeah. And I worked at Kmart, and that's the only job I had before the Air Force.
Really?
Was my parents came to me and they said, "We'll buy you a car, but you got to get a job and pay for your insurance." And so there was a Kmart like 2 miles from my house, and I went over there and started working behind the register, and then became stock boy, and then worked in sporting goods and garden department and all that.
Did you get demoted then? Going from the red? Don't most people try to get to the register?
No. You try to get away from the register.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that was it. And it was rough because the culture there is very much about there's not a lot of, like, I see from east to west. West is more informed. I would say more curious, more of a curious culture in a way of like, what's healthy? How do I make?
And when you say West, you're talking about the United States.
Yeah,
Okay.
just as
Yep.
you
Just to clarify.
come more west, back east it's very much like life is what it is, and
It worked 50 years ago. It's gonna work today.
I work at Kmart, therefore that's my destiny in life. Like, but the thing is, like, you don't actually have
Yeah.
that thought. There is no thought, and it's very much like McDonald's has a $1 menu and it tastes good, so that's why I eat there. It's never like, I wonder if this is good for me.
Gotcha.
And so what
That it is what it is.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Life happens to me, right? There's like no choices here. I'm just going to complain about my job, but why would I actually think about getting another job?
So speaking of that, going
interesting.
to another job from the frying pan right into the fryer, what intrigued you? Why did you join the Air Force? How did that happen?
Yeah, so there was a point when I was 18 and I started going to community college, and my mom had worked there, and so my mom being smart and always thinking about money, she goes, "Well, I'm leaving one job, I'm going to go get another job. I'll go to the community college, and then my son can go there for free if he wants to," because I wasn't like an amazing student. Like I never tried, but I was a solid B+ guy. That was my thing.
That's actually amazing to me.
Yeah.
B+ is awesome.
Yeah. And so, I'm working at Kmart, and the whole time, like, everyone that I hung out with and the whole culture there is like to get drunk. Like, I got to make enough money so I can, buy some beers or
Make
whatever.
it through the weekend.
And that's it, right? And I'm going to college, and that's not working out. And I have my best friend goes off to like a real school, and it's like Party City, and it's incredible. So then I start going down there all the time because it's only like 30, 40 minutes from the house. And I'm doing all this, and I'm realizing like I'm failing out of college. I have no future. I'm noticing that I'm not happy. The only thing I knew that I was passionate about was hunting and fishing. And then one night I'm sitting there with my cousin and my other cousin's husband. I don't know what you would call that relation, but they started.
Cousin.
Yeah, I guess cousin, husband. 2 guys, right? And we're sitting there talking, and they start telling me about these 2 guys who joined the Air Force out of the super small town that they're from, because they're from a town of like 1,200. Like, yeah, one guy's in Montana, one guy's in Alaska, and they're hunting and fishing, doing all these things. And I'm like, man, I got to do that. Like, I got to get out of here. Like, I just got to go somewhere, like I had nothing going the way if I just stayed there. And so just out on a whim, I just drove up to the recruiter's office, was like, hey, I want to join. And of course the Air Force recruiter wasn't there, because at the time everybody wanted to be in the Air Force, to the point where the recruiter was like, what do you want, dude? I don't care. My quota's been met. I don't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And it was funny is I walked in the office and 5 Marines were there, all in their dress uniform. And these guys, like, oh man, they were like, come on in here, get in here. And I was in their office. I couldn't get out. They wouldn't let me leave.
And this is what, like 2003, 4?
No. 2009,
Nine?
early 2009, because I joined June of 09. So
Gotcha.
maybe it was late 08.
Okay.
And then of course I told my dad, and my dad's like, you sure? And then I told my mom, and she was not thrilled. She, because
Yeah.
moms, they think straight to war or death.
Well, and
something irrational.
At that time, we're invested in the Middle East completely.
Yeah, exactly. We were actually at war, and now it's funny. My mom's like the biggest veteran advocate there is, right? Because I went in the Air Force, and she saw the change in me, and now she's always doing stuff for homeless vets and this and that. I mean, my mom does amazing philanthropic work for veteran organizations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you enlist, and then what? Where do you go?
So my recruiter had told me about being a flying crew chief, which is really a specialty. It's a luxury job. It's not guaranteed. Typical recruiter, I go in, open mechanical, could have been anything. I mean, literally, I could have went anywhere, done anything, had no idea what was going on. And the other thing was when I joined, I wanted to travel, right? So I was talking about Alaska and these places. And I had a couple guys from my hometown go to McGuire Air Force Base, which is the closest base to northeastern Pennsylvania in New Jersey.
Okay.
South Jersey. It's right outside of Philly, about 30, 40 minutes. And, you know, we're in there with all the basic guys and they're getting their assignments and everything. And then I'm next to like 6 dudes and they're all going C-130s. They're going to Little Rock. And then one guy drops somewhere random, I think like Tinker in Oklahoma. And then boom, Andrew Smith, right? McGuire Air Force Base. I'm like, what? How is this possible, man? I told these guys I wanted it. I'm like, you
Go
can send
far
me
away.
Germany, Japan. I don't care, man. Send me anywhere. But I go to McGuire. And so I get there thinking I'm going to be this flying crew chief. Again, know nothing about airplanes, the Air Force, assignments. I mean, I have no idea about anything, you know, just being really 19, kind of a man, but yet really just a child and you know, drop in the ocean of this monstrous organization. And luckily I get there and realize that flying crew chief is a real possibility for us because in not all places it is. And I just put my head down and I just start grinding, you know, volunteering for literally anything and everything that I could. Cold nights, you know, negative temperatures, working 12-hour shifts, you know, all right, everyone's sitting in the break room and it's warm. Who wants to go hang engine covers, you know, in 30-mile-an-hour flight line winds where it's like the worst, most impossible job and it sucks. And I'd be like, let's go, I'll do it. Like
To try to get educated as much as possible.
Yeah, and just show that I was humble and willing to outwork anybody. And I guess it wasn't, I would say outwork anybody. That sounds very competitive, but it wasn't. It was just about, I just knew that there was something better that I could get if I was to try hard. And so I did that. And then I ended up getting on the program. We called it the program at the time. And I think the squadron was maybe like 400 guys. And there was like 25 levels and then like 27 levels. So, I mean, it was pretty much cream of the crop. And I ended up getting on, and the commander has to sign the paperwork. You have to go through kind of this vetting process and prove yourself, and all the guys have to recommend you and all this. And you know, it's a tough community being a maintainer, Aaron. I mean, it's dog eat dog. You know, they want to see you lose and they want to make fun of you, but if you're good, you join the club. And so I deployed early, and then when I got home from my deployment, and you know, I did everything I could to work as hard as I could. They put me on a trip over to Morón, Spain, and I went. And when I got back, the guy told him that I did really good, and the commander signed my paperwork, and I was the first person to ever have my paperwork signed under like 2 years in the squadron ever, like with 2 years of being in. So I was really proud of that, you know, in not a very arrogant way, but just to like, wow, you know, I did everything I could to get this, and I got it, and I was really happy about that.
So what did that job entail, being in that middle seat back there? Like what did you do?
Well, this was just a flying crew chief job on KC-10s. So this was just a privilege. So really we didn't do anything. When we flew, we slept. We had bunks, so we slept. And then when you get off the plane, you quick inspect it and refill it, make sure it's good to go.
Take care of it after it lands and prep it for the next one.
Make sure it's ready to go. And then you know, when we're getting ready to take off again, we show up a little bit earlier than everyone else, make sure it's, again, gassed up, ready to go, blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
And that was our whole thing. We just, you know, made sure the plane was ready to go everywhere we landed. So basically, instead of traveling with the large maintenance crew, you travel with 2 guys everywhere you go. And
Gotcha.
then if the plane breaks, then you call home and they send out parts and send out people and stuff.
So how did you get here to DM, Davis Monthan, here in Tucson?
Yeah, so that story is, again, always trying to climb the ladder. And this kind of touches into a little bit of my big why, which I'm sure inevitably we'll get into at some point, but always looking for what's the next thing, because I always wanted to challenge myself. And as soon as I got on the program, it was like, okay, well, what can I do here? How do I become the best at this? And again, not from a competitive standpoint, but just how do I know that I'm succeeding? and that was, they judged it by days gone, right? How many trips did you go on? How many days gone? And so I think that next year I had, I was like third or fourth or something, and the first 3 were 7 levels, so I was at top 5 level. So, again, achieved that. But in me, I saw the maintenance community, and I saw how nasty it was, and I saw how you weren't rewarded long term. It was guys would do anything to stab you in the back to bring you down, even from top down. I saw that, and not everybody, but a lot of people. And I really wanted to be a boom operator. I thought that was like the most cush job in the world. And then really, as time went on, as I got to know the boom operators, I'm like, man, anybody could do this. This is a joke. And then I saw the flight engineer, but I always thought I could never be an FE. I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm smart enough to do this. I mean, talk to pilots. Pilots will tell you their job's harder than mine, right? Not all pilots, but a lot of pilots would be like, they're responsible for a lot more knowledge and things that we are. Like when everything's gone wrong, like they're the guy that has to step up, and you see that. And at some point, my mind shifted from I want to do the cushiest job to this job, but it was also flying was a privilege. So when you put that flight suit on, it was a privilege. That flight suit, those trips, all that little bit of special duty pay, it could be gone in a second. Where I wanted it to be, now this is my job.
Yeah,
this is what I do all the time. And so everyone was like, "You'll never get it. The maintenance career field's locked." This is when we were going through, I can't remember what the word was. The Air Force had a word for recession. I think it was,
the reduction piece there.
Sequestration or something. Is that a word?
No,
maybe I made that up.
Sequester.
That's a cool word.
I don't know. It was something like that.
We should roll with it.
Yeah.
And everyone,
so they sequestered
the
Air Force.
Everyone just kept saying, "You'll never move. There's no chance. You have no chance." And every night, I was on night shift when I was home, which wasn't very often, and I would click apply. And then one day it just said approved. And I was like, holy crap. And then it said, here's your next steps. And step 1 was like, go get a flight physical. And I literally, worked a 12-hour shift, went to the med clinic the next day and showed up and was like, I need a flight physical. And they were like, who are you? And I'm like, I need a flight physical. I need a flight physical. I need a flight physical. I'm not leaving until you give me a flight physical. Just persistence and not giving up. And it ended up all working out. And then I went to school down in Lackland and everything, and you have to pass the BFE, the basic flight engineer, was designed to wash you out. It was, we're going to give you way too much information in a short amount of time to wash you out because we can only have the best in this class. And made it through that, wrote down my stuff. I actually wanted to go back to Jersey. At that point, I was convinced. I'm like, hey, I know everybody back there.
Yeah.
It's really not bad. Figured I'd just go back because I had all that prior knowledge, which was only going to make me a better flight engineer. Mm-hmm. And all my buddies were still there, and this and that, close to family, which really turned out not to be a bad thing. But I put down number 2, Tucson, and I didn't even know anything about Tucson.
Ever been here before?
No.
Could you spell it right with the
Tucson?
But I didn't think any of the other assignments looked good, and I really never actually put any thought past number 1. I just thought.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, Tucson seems like a good city because, a lot of it's about base, right? You can end up in the middle of nowhere in the Air Force. And so I wrote it down, and they're going around the classroom and they're like, so-and-so, what was your first pick? And the guy's like, C5, Dover. And he's like, you got it. And then he's like, next thing. And you're like, Aaron, what did you pick? And you were like, C-130s, Little Rock. And he's like, nope. What was your second pick? And you're like, J-Stars, Moody. And he's like, you got it, right? And then he's going around the room, he's like, Drew Smith, KC-10s. And he's like, what's your first pick? I'm like, KC-10s. And he's like, nope, second pick. And I'm like, he's like, Drew. And I'm like, he's like, Drew, literally, no kidding. And I was like, what? And he's like, what was your second pick? And I'm like, I think it was whatever plane is in Tucson. And he was like, Easy 130s, you got it. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like this. I'm like lay back in my seat, like, what?
Oh crap! I'm moving to Tucson.
I'm not going back to Jersey.
And I'm going to an airframe I don't know.
Yeah.
And that was it, man. And then I just was like, cool. And what was crazy, right, was I met a girl down there who we were spending time together, and she was from Tucson. And then that turned into a whole thing, and but that was kind of fun, It was just very interesting.
So-
All these things happening at once.
So you end up in Tucson on EC 130s. What is EC, for those listening, have no idea what that is, whether it's a truck or a airplane.
Yeah.
What is the general
What's it do?
purpose behind it?
So EC-130 is basically a C-130 that everyone knows is a cargo plane, and it's modified for. How would I say this? Because everything is like top secret.
How about if I talk about it a little bit, since I don't know?
Yeah, it's made for combat jamming.
There you go.
That's the whole thing.
Electrical
So from
warfare,
what I've
jamming.
Wikipedia'd it is, it flies around and it can jam communications and electronics.
Yeah,
On the
that's
ground.
the
There you go.
simplest form.
That's
Yeah.
the redneck
Pretty much.
version, right?
So in war, we would go out with, a stack of planes and people on the ground. And basically when you were going to go overrun somewhere, you think about how you have the guy on the watchtower or whatever, the guy that's 10 miles down the road, guarding whatever. And we roll in and they don't know we're there because we're 20,000 feet in the air. And all of a sudden he's like, oh man, there's a convoy coming in. And he's sitting there pressing his radio going click, 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 click. And
That's not working.
He has
Yep.
no idea.
So
that it's not
basically,
working.
this thing can fly around and just shuts electronics down.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So your job on that as you're flying, and then you had told me too, is what's the longest that you stayed up in the air?
We did one time for like 14 plus some hours. We were on some high profile target in Iraq, which I think it's fine to say. And that was it.
Yeah.
And
So-
it was just like, we got him. Like, here he is. And what are we going to do? And we were just there. And that was it.
And
There you
for some of these, it could be 12 hours of just doing loops.
Yeah.
NASCAR.
It's always different. Sometimes you go out and it's quick, and sometimes you
Yeah.
go out and it's a long time, or sometimes we go out and we're just kind of there. And yeah, it's always different.
So before we dive into life lessons and serious stuff, you've told me two things that are my two favorite military stories of yours.
Sure.
First is this. When you're in the air for 14 hours, sometimes you got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And this
Back-
is not a commercial liner that's plumbed and made to withstand
That's
a
it.
bunch of Air Force dudes.
Honey bucket.
The honey bucket.
Yeah.
So what is the honey bucket?
I don't know the exact mechanical breakdown of the honey bucket, but it looks like a igloo cooler with a toilet seat on it.
It's basically a Homer bucket from Home Depot with
Yeah.
a seat on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that thing has to come off and on the plane, right?
yeah,
Who
Has to be emptied.
Who takes
right?
it?
the AMT, which for us would be the Loadmaster.
Dude.
Yeah.
So you're telling me for 14 hours you guys are flying around and there's one Homer bucket with a seat on it and some poor sap has to take that off the plane.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always get used, but
Sometimes it does.
sometimes it does. Yeah, and the AMT is the one who usually it's already on the plane, but he's the one that has to pick it up and take it off and set it over here.
Do you ever
I
walk
see
by
where
him and
this
just
is going.
apologize before he gets there?
Yeah, there was one story one time where a couple of people had used it, and the AMT, I looked at him and he was like, "Dude, I had to deadlift that thing." Bro. And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, he was a little dude, so he wasn't like strong or anything, but he was like, "Bro, I had to deadlift it," and I was just dying laughing. It was pretty funny.
So the other one is tell him the story about you taking a siesta and waking up and thought that was it.
Oh, okay. So Afghanistan, nighttime, always do missions at night over there, cockpit's dark and everything like that. I was known for sleeping, right? First deployment, young FE, right? Usually I know guys that have done over 10,000 hours and they still sit in the seat every second like, oh, not me. No, not me. I got faith in that old bird, every time. So
And you're up front, like you can look out the front
yeah,
windows that the pilots are looking
So
at.
the way to picture it is like if I put my hands out just naturally, like in front of me, like that's where the pilots sit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like boom right there, and then I'm right here.
Right in between, behind him a little bit.
Yeah, right behind him. But like a foot behind him.
So you're sitting in the back seat of an extended cab truck.
more or less.
It
Yeah,
is
like right
in
in
the
the
middle.
middle. That's exactly how to picture it. With your feet up, usually on the center console, but it's down a little bit lower. It actually has a footrest on it. And I usually have my chair swiveled one way or the other because it swivels. and usually got my feet kicked up, reclined back, chilling, got my headphones on so I could hear the radios and everything, people talking. Sometimes I even punch off. I'll just tell them, hey, man, I'm punching off totally. Just smack me if you need me. And I had a really good pilot on my first deployment. He was super cool. And, so Afghanistan, nighttime, pitch black, fly in, and you don't know when you're in a cloud or when you're not, when it's pitch black. And the way that the flare system is set up, it's on like an auto thing, and it should never pop flares in a cloud. Well, I've never popped flares in a cloud at night, and flares are orange. So all of a sudden we're laying there, and the sky just lights up, like everything, and it's everything.
And
just
you were
turns
sleeping
bright orange, yeah. And I had like my eyes. I don't think I was like fully out, but my eyes were closed and just flashing orange, and I'm like, Jesus, like, here we like. I don't
This
know.
is it.
I literally have no idea what's happening. Like I'm like, are we exploding? Are we being shot down? I mean, you just anytime something like that abruptly happens, you have no idea what's going on. But I was never been so scared in my life. And the nav's like, yeah, we pop flares. He's just chilling, right? He's like, yeah, we just popped a couple flares. And I don't know. Evidently, he had done that before or something. I don't know.
Meanwhile, you have to go back to the honey bucket.
Yeah, I was just like, I mean, my heart was in my throat. I was like, what just happened? And then, just that flash of light, I mean, it just blew my mind. It was crazy.
Aaron had talked about that of the 60s, right? That they would pop flares sometimes.
Yeah, actually, it was 53s would pop
53s.
Taking off over there in Afghanistan right at the end of the runway. They just pick up on the signal, and they
Yeah.
a couple ground fires.
Yeah.
They were too low.
And that's a common thing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the planes will just pop when they shouldn't. But yeah, when you pop in a cloud, that is a totally different experience at night. And at the daytime, you probably wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah.
But here's what's crazy. I'll tell you another story. I've been struck by lightning before in the plane. Not me, but the plane. And it was not as scary as that.
That's crazy.
In the plane, it was just like pop. Yeah, something smacked the front of the airplane. And, I mean, you were scared because you're looking up, like for me, and I'm looking at all the systems. I'm going like, all right, did we lose any generators? Did something terrible happen? And I look around, and I'm like, everything's fine. But yeah, popping flares in the cloud when you don't know what's going to happen is just like, holy moly. But what's crazy, though, is it only has to happen once because it happened to me again. And then I was like, I'm
Oh, you're like the nav. Just
the
pop some
veteran.
flares.
Hey, just pop some flares. What are you guys worried about?
So you finish your time here at Tucson, got into real estate. What was your? How do you go from FE to real estate? Like why real estate?
So huge shout out to my brother Ben. Really, you guys know Ben.
One of the most stand-up guys I've ever met in my entire life.
Class act guy.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know anybody else like Ben. I mean, he's just one of a kind. I mean, he's awesome.
100%.
And at that time, I had a lot of friends in Tucson, and I think Ben did, but we got in this weird place where all of our friends had left town for whatever reason. People moving, Phoenix, things, and this and that. And Ben and I had known each other for a while, but never on a deep relationship. And then we started hanging out because we didn't really have any other friends. And then it was like, it was kind of that like, hey man, you be my friend, like we never had that conversation, but it both just like, he would start calling me, I would start calling him.
It's like stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends?
Yeah. And then one day we're sitting there and I didn't really know much about, I just knew Ben was in real estate. I didn't know anything else. And I said to him, I'm like, man, I want to make more money. And I said that just to see what he would say, right? And he's like, you should do real estate, man. And we just started having that conversation. And for 2 years, I had been looking to find a way out because I didn't want to be active duty anymore. And also I was looking at going pilot because, you go from crew chief, flight engineer. The next progression up is pilot. There is no, I mean, it's not like nav or something like that. It's like pilot. There's nothing else. So I'm looking at all these different ways to get out, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I really wanted to go guard or reserve because I deployed with those guys and went to school with guys like that, and I knew how they were living and everything. But bottom line, I mean, long story short, is Ben and I started talking about doing real estate. And so I had all these plans to go to, I was going to move to Kansas City and join the St. Joe's Guard unit. I was going to move to Cocoa Beach, Florida, and go to Embry-Riddle and join their guard unit. Both those units just said they would take me and blah, 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 but it just never worked out. And then Ben was like, come join the team, do real estate. And I didn't even know what I was going to do. I just knew I was going to do it. And that's how I ended up in real estate. And I thought I was going to do investment real estate because I bought my first property when I was deployed, and I was making a ton of money, like cash, like just crazy cash coming in. And I was like, this is cool. Because these guys were like, oh, you know about your VA loan. And I'm like, what's a VA loan? And they're like, you buy a house 0 down. I'm like, buy a house 0 down, dude. What does that even mean? I had a house in escrow like 3 weeks later. I'm like, let's go, right?
Nice.
And so all those things, I was like, I wanted to share that message with people. But I thought I was going to do investment real estate. Got in, started running numbers, started seeing how hard it is to find deals in Tucson. And meanwhile, my phone starts ringing from base. Hey Drew, what's up, man? Help me find a house. Help me sell a house. Help me do it. And because everyone knew, and I was telling the story on Facebook, and that started to take off, and I started to see how much more I enjoyed that. And then I kind of made the transition from being mentored around investment real estate and kind of underneath Jake at that time, Jake Arnold, to Steven McNair-Larice, who was really the residential guy over there, while Ben was kind of, up here looking more at the construction and the property management stuff. And that was it. And that's how I made the transition. And then the passion kind of became helping people on base, helping people that I knew, because that was fun when you get to work with your friends. I mean, there's nothing more fun than like, it's one of your buddies calling you being like,
well, you could see the passion resonating from you.
Yeah.
I know.
And that was really it for me. That was kind of the transition. And then, if you want to push even farther forward, then I get into it and then I get too busy. Right. Mm-hmm. At one point I had, I told the story in Real Producers Magazine, which was cool, kind of lucky and had fun and blessed to do a piece with them. I said I had 20 deals in escrow. I didn't know the girl was going to write it down, quote unquote, but I had 17 deals in escrow, and I was losing my mind because I was still so new.
Well, and you came out like a bat out of hell.
Yeah.
I mean, your ramp up time was approximately 4 hours.
Yeah. The day that I had my license, I had to call the designated broker, and I was like, hey, you need to approve my license, and because I have an offer that's written and I can't submit it because I'm not technically an agent yet. And I don't know how I got so lucky. I guess for me it was, if I'm not successful at this, like, how am I going to make money? I just went from
failure's not an option.
I just went from the most stable thing ever to the most unstable thing ever.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I have to win. I have to succeed. I have to provide for myself, I guess. I don't know.
Which, I mean, it was a lot like yours was, you were licensed much longer than before you got out.
Yeah.
But it was that same mentality a little bit, right? That you knew that there had to be something.
That's right. You go from the security blanket of the military into free fall of real estate. You're unemployed every day.
Not even like, you guys don't even go to an intermediary where there's like an hourly wage.
Yeah.
You go from the government's paying every single month to
everything
100%
Yeah.
commission based.
Yep. Yeah.
It's crazy.
And shout out to the VA for covering my health insurance, because I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
praise the Lord
That's awesome.
that was covered for me.
Mm-hmm.
So why, question for you for this is, you are one of those personalities or people where I can call and say, hey, we're going to Tanzania in 6 months to go dig a well. And you're going to say,
Let's do it.
when do I book my ticket?
Yeah.
I come up with crazy ideas, and Mexico was one of them, and you have not missed a single one since. Date, money, issue, timing's never an issue for you. It's we're doing this. When I called you and said, hey, I somehow got us an RV to drive cross country to go gut houses, you're like, okay, cool. And then we shot a video with the news, and it happened.
Yeah.
Why is that ingrained in you? Why do you continue to say yes?
I have to think about that. I mean, one, I like new experiences and I want to have fun, but also definitely any opportunity to serve. I would put it this way. I'm not good at seeking those opportunities out on my own, but when I'm presented with something like that, like, I'm just like, yeah, we've got to do it. So
Yeah.
I almost think of it like it's not optional, right? And now that I'm married, it's kind of different. But the cool thing is my wife is very understanding that that's a huge part of my life, that I like to go and do those things and help other people. So yeah, I think with the One Mission thing too, like that one really resonates with me. That one's really like hit me deep, especially every time we've gone, we've got to know the families even better.
Yeah.
And
It's become more purposeful. Like the first, I think I'm at 10 or 12 houses now. Like the first, maybe even half of them, it was go down there and build the house as fast as we can and get done. But now it's like, it's going to get built regardless.
Yeah.
Let's make connections with the people.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely more purposeful, more meaningful, more personal. And it's just like, I think for me, I tend to think about it like these people, whatever the scenario is, whether it was Hurricane Harvey or it was One Mission or anything, it's always like, I have the resources to help these people. How could I say no to that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm healthy, I'm willing, I'm able.
You're in a position
It
where you can
makes
take
sense.
time off.
Yeah. That too. You know, the flexibility of my job now, things like that. It's just like, how could you say no? And yeah, so maybe some of my reasons are a little bit selfish because we do always find a way to have fun, but I think for the most part, it's just about the cost because it's not like I say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Right. You know.
I think the hard work and dedication that you put into real estate allows you to do those things that you're passionate about. And
Absolutely.
that's that full circle,
Yeah.
concept there. So that's pretty cool.
I talked to someone not too long ago who had a pretty unique job opportunity, and it wasn't like, hey man, I want to hire you or anything like that, but he was telling me about it. But I knew that he needed someone, and he kind of was having the conversation with me of like, hey, I'm not going to put this straight out to you because our relationship wasn't
Yeah.
really at that place where it was like, hey, I can be so transparent with you, but we were acquaintances. And the thing that caught me was I was like, I can't just go to One Mission.
Right.
Yeah.
That was really the thing. It was like okay, and I looked at it and it was like, well, I could income wise, I can probably do better, maybe make a little more upfront with them or something like that. But whatever, it was like I don't have the flexibility of the freedom.
Yeah.
These guys were more slaves to their
Yeah.
their phones and their things and that.
Yeah.
But it was a sales job, and it was really cool. But it was just like I can't just. Be
It didn't fit for the time in your life right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, hey
there's
man,
nothing wrong
I'm
with
going to Mexico
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know when I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Or I'm coming back on Monday, whatever, like deal with it. Like it was not like that. And so one thing that I find myself in conversations with certain people about now is I just turned 30. So I have a lot of friends, obviously a couple of years above me or below me. And we talk about time versus freedom and things like that.
Yeah.
What will you pay, for security? What will you pay for freedom? What will people, so it's interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it goes down to at least with me, is like there is the freedom flexibility part. Like there is no amount of money that could replace coaching my kids in baseball and softball.
Right.
Like there's no amount of money that we can go, we're going to Mexico in a couple weeks and
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been thinking about that a lot. Right now, I'm very much focused on the moment. My bigger picture vision hasn't been clear lately, and I think that's because I just got married, and I think me and my wife are trying to figure those things out together. I'm trying to take a lot of it because I'm very much the leader in my relationship, and she knows that, and we both believe that that's the way that it should be. But it doesn't mean that she doesn't have a say in anything, right? It's just very much like, okay, you're the man, you're more responsible, you're going to provide and do these things. And but for me, I've always come from a very me-focused, self-centered perspective because I was an only child, and my parents are both very kind of selfish people, and not like to like a super fault or anything like that. But even my mom admitted, she's like, yeah, you're the struggle in marriage because me and your dad are selfish, right? He does his thing, I do my thing. So
independent.
yeah, very, very independent. But now it's like trying to figure out that vision with her instead of saying like, hey, we're going to go here. Like, what do you want to do?
it's no longer where do I see myself in 5 years, but where do we see us in 5
Yeah.
years?
And now she's in real estate, so it's like, hey, is she going to stay in real estate? How is she really liking it? Is she actually good at it? Like, because it takes time to figure out, like, are you actually good at this, or are you just getting results? How?
And you could also be very good in real estate and hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, like, if you talk about my few years, like, I've rode that roller coaster up and down, right?
Because like Brittany, right, her personality and how she is with people, she'll do just fine. She will do way better than the normal real estate agent because she can communicate with people. But that doesn't necessarily mean that because you're good at something that you're gonna love it for 20 years.
Yeah, and I've preached that hard, and that's one thing that I've had to look at. But yeah, the 3 to 5 year vision is challenging. And the other thing too, like thinking about it from a real estate standpoint, I've never been through market shifts, and I don't know what that looks like. If all of a sudden a shift could be we just level out, right? I mean, technically that could really be a shift.
Yeah.
Really, like nothing's
A
really
change
gonna
from the norm.
We're just going to sit here with no inventory and low interest rates for the next 3 years. And then maybe, and then inventory goes back up and interest rates maybe go up or something. And that's a different market. And that's a shift then within
Agreed.
itself. So for me to think about my vision right now is tricky because I think I'm very kind of hyper focused on what is my family about? Because I can tell you right now, and this is no surprise to anybody, but my wife is like, when are we going to have kids?
Yep.
And I'm very much like, I don't know, and it's not that I'm.
That's exciting times. Though.
Yeah, it is, and it's a lot of responsibility, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to like sand off the rough edges of this marriage, this first, not
Hey,
that it's not been rough. But
just to let you know, you're gonna lose that conversation.
yeah, I kind of figured.
Yeah.
And I'm open to it, but it's just like I'm just trying to make sure that we're not gonna like we're in a very free and flexible time right now, and I'm thinking like, hey, we need to figure out what we're really about, what we stand for, what our vision is, and if there's anything that we need to do now to take advantage of before once the kids come, because I know once it comes, everything changes.
Yeah.
Well, I think with kids, and I think that most any parent would agree to this, is that whatever good or bad is in a relationship, or just as an individual, when you throw kids on it, all it does is magnify that.
It's amplifier.
It is.
It's actually pretty cool though.
It is like but on the other side, like if you think or if you are good with kids, when you have kids, it's gonna catapult that. Like
Well, I will tell you, I've been married this week here is gonna be 25 years. So I get it. Yeah, 25 years is a long time. Actually, you're only 30 years old, so
That's it.
Figure that. So, and of course, we started with no kids, and then you have kids, so it actually kind of cements you together a little bit more too. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Anything that you want to tell the world?
Tell the world.
It could be nothing. It could be
The only people that listen to this podcast is
my mom,
my dad, and you'll listen to it. So that's about it.
Yeah,
maybe your mom.
maybe.
Yeah,
My mom would love it. She'd probably share it.
she's a sweet lady.
I think the big thing that I wrestle with right now, and I think that everyone should wrestle with it and nail it down and get it figured out as early as they can, is what success is and what joy and happiness is, and to dig out your deepest fears, I think, and just lay them on the table and be able to live a life that is fulfilling, because
For sure.
you could spend your whole life and never actually figure out what your purpose is and what things control you, things like what your why is, and all these things. And I think you have to. I mean, you don't have to, right? You see people do it all the time, but I think you should.
That is, and I don't know if that's, Aaron, this is not an age joke. You're a little bit older than us.
I can still hear you.
You have headphones on. But like growing up, that conversation right there of what fulfills you, what's your big why, like, is that conversation was never with me growing up.
No.
Zero.
No.
Like,
Let me go back. It may have been with you. You just never heard it correctly.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just FYI.
That's probably true for most of us, yeah.
Yeah.
But at some point you hear it.
Yeah.
And at some point it resonates with you. And
You're right. You hear it eventually, or you're effective listening.
Yeah. And
Listening
maybe
effectively.
it's one of those where until I had responsibility of other people, it didn't, that's when it actually
More pronounced.
gauged.
for sure.
you know.
So yeah, I would think it's that, and I think that you will find, like Aaron and I, we talked the other day. What is the definition of success, and then also like, what does it mean to be wealthy?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at what everyone's really chasing, I think is peace and joy, right? That's what I mean. Dude, Aaron or Chase, we've been to Mexico. I mean, Aaron, you've been there too. I've seen people who live in those homes.
Yep.
And they're happy. And they're like, you know what I mean? Like they're not
correct.
But
when am I going to get a better car and a nicer car and a nicer home? And this, like,
the lady that lost her husband while her house is being built, her response said, one of the guys that runs it, One Mission, asked her, he said, "What's this house mean to you?" And her response was, "This is the first time that I can actually enjoy rain."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when it rained before, it destroyed my
It is. It's
house,
amazing
if you
that you can
call
have
it.
so little yet have so much. You know?
Yeah.
I heard a quote one time, and I think it was in the book, maybe Vagabonding, which is a book about travel, but Tim Ferriss recommended it like so many times that one day I saw it. I think I saw it in Barnes and Nobles, and I just grabbed it and was like, I'm just going to read through this thing. And it also, he had said like, now this book is about travel, but there's quotes in here that will teach you about life.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes in there, and I have no idea who said it, but it wasn't the author. I think he quoted someone else, and he said, "The greatest skill that I have in life is to be happy with less." And I was like, dude, that just like riveted me, because you think about comparison and acquiring more things is always the thing that steals the joy
that has
out of your life.
become more transparent to me. I've been really focusing on that, because you can get so many things and they become distractions.
Absolutely.
And then you start complaining about all the stuff that you have.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, I just brought this into my own world.
Yeah.
So why don't I just get rid of a lot of this stuff and go back to simplicity?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I asked you, Aaron, a while ago too. I said, "Well, what's your advice for me? Because you got me by 20 years." And I said, we're playing the same game here, to some degree, and I respect you, and I look up to you in a lot of ways. And I was like, what's your one piece of advice for me? And you said, it's about the journey, right? More than anything. And I've tried to figure out what that really means. And recently I was reading a book, and the guy in there said, life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a process to be lived in. And I think really what that is like, it's good to set our goals, and it's good to do these things, but you can't chase the carrot, because you never get it. And I think if we're constantly thinking that we're going to arrive at X destination by doing something, realizing that there's always going to be a bit more, right? If wealth or money or whatever these things become what I believe is like my ultimate value and the thing that's going to make me happy, I can always have one more.
Yeah.
Right. Or even if I go on some crazy fitness challenge or something,
right.
like I can always do one more push up or cut one more second off my
the infinite
run.
game.
Exactly. It's the infinite game.
And
So how do you enjoy the process, right?
so that's what a couple years ago I had 3 friends pass away of cancer within a couple months of each other, and it was devastating watching that, the families. And I just remember, as loud as God can speak to you, it was enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, because you're not guaranteed the destination.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've been trying to do that, right? Like I get so ticked off traveling with the family sometimes. I'm like, let's just get there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, now I'm trying to cognitively be like, we're going to Mexico in 3 weeks. How can we enjoy the journey at the border or in Arizona?
Yeah.
I love this flat tire. This is awesome.
But realistically,
but
like
it becomes a memory.
I know for a fact that if
part
one of
the
us
journey.
gets a flat tire driving down there with all of us carpooling, it's gonna turn fun.
Yeah.
Like how can we? And that's a short game, right? But I'm not guaranteed 80. I'm not guaranteed 36, and that's less than a month away. How can we enjoy this process? That's wise words.
Yeah.
That's what it's
Good
about.
stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's about being present. And I know that's kind of like the meta or the esoteric saying, like, be present, brother.
Yeah.
But like
Realistically,
but it's true. I mean, you be present, like every day. Get what you need to get done. Yeah.
Yep.
Set your goals, what's Gary say? Aim high, or think big, aim high.
yeah.
Is that it? Did I say it right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, but
Sounds
he
really
says
good.
something like that, right? Or you could be anywhere you want to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
Those are all true things, and I think you should strive in a lot of ways, but never let it steal your joy. Like you should, when you come home to be with your spouse or kids or whatever, like
Be there.
with them.
Yep.
Because if you're not, you're gonna wake up one day and be like, "What the heck?"
It's gonna
Yep.
be gone.
Can't go back.
That's it.
Well, good.
Appreciate it, dude. Always
Good
a pleasure.
stuff, man.
Yeah. So we'll get this posted, and then we hope your mom enjoys it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me. Hi, Mom. Love you. Tell Grandma I said hi.
Anything
Shout out
else?
to my dad too.
Sweet.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. On
All
that
right.
note, we are out.
Peace out.